Sentire Media.
Well, hello there, and welcome back to another episode of A New Life in Italy, the podcast that gives you the real scoop on everything you need to know about living, thriving, and creating a life in Italy. I'm your host, Samantha Wilson, and today's episode is a particularly important one because we're tackling the subject that affects not just those planning to move to Italy, but pretty much everyone, and that is fake news and misleading information. Now, let's be honest, fake news isn't just about politics or world events anymore. It's crept into every corner of our lives, from health advice to travel recommendations to, yes, even information about moving to Italy. And it's easy to find articles and posts and even videos online that make bold claims that don't really tell the full story. Now, these half-truths and sensationalized headlines might really grab your attention, but they can also lead to costly mistakes, wasted time, and dashed dreams. When it comes to something as life-changing as uprooting your life and moving to another country, the stakes are really even higher. False and misleading information about visas or taxes, cheap houses, villages willing to pay you to move there, or just the Italian lifestyle in general, they can leave you feeling really overwhelmed and quite confused, or worse, cause you to make decisions that have serious financial or even legal consequences. In today's world, where misinformation can spread faster than ever, it's more important now to slow down and to ask, is this really true? And more importantly, how can I find out if it's true? So in this episode, we're not only going to debunk some of the most common pieces of fake news about moving to Italy, but we're also going to talk about why it's so crucial to seek out accurate, reliable information, especially for something as significant as starting a new life abroad. So stick with me, because at the end of this episode, you'll have all the tools that you need to navigate the noise and make informed, confident decisions about your Italian journey. Are you ready? Let's get started. I'm Samantha Wilson, Chief Dreammaker at smartmoveitaly.com, and this is A New Life in Italy, a show where each week I take you behind the scenes of what it's really like to move to Italy, introduce you to some fascinating people, answer your questions, and show you how starting a new life in Bel Paese is possible for you. Okay, so let's dive into some of the most common examples of fake news and misleading information about moving to Italy. And if you've ever Googled how to move to Italy and scrolled through social media posts about life here, or maybe you've just clicked those enticing articles about Italian visas or taxes or dreamy countryside homes, chances are you've stumbled on at least some of these fake posts. Now, I see so many of them that honestly, it was a little bit hard to decide which ones to talk about today. Because clickbait posts are just a part of the problem, although it's a big one because they're designed to draw you in and toward a service that is likely as misleading as the ad itself. Now, the thing about fake news in this context is that it's not always an outright lie. Sometimes it starts with a grain of truth, but it's exaggerated, oversimplified, or missing critical details. And that's where the real danger lies, because when you don't have the full picture, it's easy to make decisions that can waste your time, of course, waste your money, and your energy, and lead you to be really disappointed and often discouraged about the whole idea of moving to Italy. So today I'm going to walk you through 3 examples of common myths, exaggerations, and misleading claims about moving to Italy. Now, for each one, I'm going to break down why it's misleading, what the truth is, and how you can protect yourself from falling into these traps. Okay, so let's start with one of the most persistent myths that I see circulating online, and that is the promise of massive, easy-to-access tax benefits for expats. Now, one of the most persistent and misleading claims I see floating around in Italy is the tax benefits for expats. Now, you've probably heard things like, move to Italy and pay no tax for 5 years, or Italy offers massive tax breaks for foreigners. Well, this is true that Italy does have some really, really good tax incentives, like, let's say, the regime impatriati or the 7% flat tax for retirees. The reality is much more nuanced than these catchy headlines often make it seem. So let's start with the basics. If you move to Italy and become a taxable resident, you will be taxed, or at the very least evaluated, on your worldwide income and assets. And that means that your rental properties, foreign pensions, investment portfolios, or any other income streams that you have back home could fall under Italy's tax jurisdiction, unless you opt into one of these special incentives. And yes, for certain people, those incentives are really fantastic. And if you're a retiree moving to a small town, for example, in southern Italy, you can take advantage of that 7% flat tax, and it can save you thousands. And for high net worth individuals, that 200,000 flat tax option is really hard to beat. In fact, I can't think of another country that's better than Italy that offers such a competitive incentive for global income. I mean, really, I know 200,000 sounds like an awful lot of money, but for some people, if that's the only tax that you're paying, regardless of how much money you're making, it can be pretty good. But here's where the misinformation creeps in. The myth that you don't need to disclose everything to the Italian tax authorities. Now, some people assume that as long as their income is in another country, it's invisible to the Italian tax office. And I can't stress this enough. This is absolutely false. Italy has international agreements and a very sophisticated system for tracking financial activity across borders. Now, if they suspect that you're hiding income, they will investigate. And if they find discrepancies, the penalties can be devastating, up to 300% of the taxes owed. That's a lot. Now, let me tell you about a couple that I met once who learned this really the hard way. Now, they'd been coming back to Italy year over year on an elective residency visa. And they would stay here, obviously. They were living here full time, but they would go back and forth, and they never formally established residency, which, aside from being in contravention of the visa, it was a way for them that they thought they could just stay under the radar. Now, as a retired firefighter, he was, and she was an accountant. They thought that they really had it all figured out, and, who would know? And for years, they avoided declaring any taxes in Italy and just carried on with life as usual. They paid their tax in the US and never paid anything or ever disclosed anything here in Italy. And then COVID hit. One of them fell ill and, of course, needed a doctor. And that's when they discovered the harsh reality of their situation. They weren't registered with the national healthcare system because this is a benefit of residency. And they had avoided establishing residency in the first place because they were trying to avoid the tax issue. Now, after all this dust settled, their case caught the attention of the Italian tax office. And once the authorities started digging, it became very clear that they had been living in Italy under the radar for years. And the penalties were severe. I mean, very, very severe. And it's a perfect example of why it's so dangerous to rely on misinformation, because they were told, don't worry, nobody will pay any attention. Just keep coming and going. Don't bother registering your residency. Nobody will know. And it's not just about understanding the rules. It's about understanding the consequences of getting it wrong. Italy's tax laws are very complex. And when you don't know what you don't know, it's easy to fall into a trap that could cost you a small fortune. The takeaway, yes, Italy offers some incredible tax benefits, but they're not automatic and they're certainly not loopholes. So if you're considering moving to Italy, make sure that you understand your tax obligations and, most importantly, work with a professional who can guide you properly, like a qualified commercialista who is a tax person here in Italy to help you navigate the process. And make sure that you're compliant. Although it's going to cost you some money, it could save you thousands in the long run. I mean, and this couple, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Remember, the devil is in the details. And when it comes to taxes in Italy, those details seriously matter. All right, so we've done the taxes. Now let's move on to the next one. Some of the most common examples of misinformation come from a simple clickbait, the kind that those AI-generated voiceovers that promise all the secrets about specific visas, claiming it's easy to apply and teasing you that all you need to do is comment and they'll send you this specific guide. And I've fallen for it, kind of out of curiosity. I've commented, downloaded the so-called guides, and let me tell you, I am stunned at the blatant lies, the vague descriptions, and really the laziness that goes into these materials. They're designed to mislead, plain and simple. and they do nothing but create confusion and false hope for people who generally want to move to Italy. So visas is the second subject I want to talk about today. On Instagram, there's an account that I follow, and actually I don't follow, I just see it pop up on my algorithm all the time. And it has hundreds of thousands of followers. I mean, this is a big account. And every single post that they make are about Italian visas. Well, it seems to be anyway. And they're either misleading or just an outright lie. And it's frustrating because these accounts have the reach to influence so many people in a good way, but they spread misinformation that can derail someone's entire immigration journey. And believe me, we get the calls, people arguing, saying, no, I saw it here. They told me I could apply this way. And we have to spend quite a lot of time sometimes explaining that that's not true. It just is fake news. Now, let me give you an example that recently came across our desk. A fairly big UK news outlet published an article not too long ago, I'm talking a week ago, claiming that you can get an investor visa for Italy by buying property. This is false. The Italian investor visa is tied exclusively to investing in an Italian company, not buying property for yourself. Now, the same article went on to say that you could qualify for a visa by investing in a fund. Again, completely false. The investor visa requires a direct investment in a single Italian company. Now, this kind of misinformation isn't just a result of lazy reporting. It's also promoted by less than honest salespeople trying to convince hopeful visa applicants to invest in their fund or buy their property in exchange for a visa. Now, you can probably guess where this is heading. These individuals prey on people's dreams and their desperation, and they push these investments that won't actually help them qualify for a visa. It's dishonest, and it sets people up for failure. The truth is, the investor visa is one of the most complex visas for Italy. It has strict rules, clear requirements, and a process that has to be followed by the letter. Now, our immigration lawyers work on many investor visas, and I can't tell you how many times that they have to explain the realities of this visa to clients who were misled by these flashy headlines. But it's not just the investor visa that falls victim to misinformation. It's probably a popular one because it can collect a lot of money from somebody, or it's targeting people with a lot of money. But the other one is the elective residency visa, which has another notorious history of misinformation. Now, the misinformation isn't coming solely from social media or online forums. It's also actually coming from the consulates themselves. Now, take the Italian consulate in London in the UK, for example. On their website, they state that a couple needs 38,000 euros per year net passive income to qualify for a visa. So that's, as a couple, 38 grand. Now, it sounds clear enough, right? But countless applicants have contacted us after being denied by this consulate and being told in their rejection letters that they needed at least 70,000 euros between the two of them. Now, can you imagine how frustrating that is? You think that you meet the requirements only to find out that there's a moving target that no one told you about? Now, it's not that the consulates are lying to you. It's just that they're not telling you the whole story. For the elective residency visa, for example, there's many things that go into the decision of whether or not to grant you the visa, not just your income, but also your other assets and other ways that you're going to support yourself. But blatantly saying 38,000 and then telling people you cannot get it with 38,000, you need more after you've gone to the trouble of applying for this visa, it's just not right. Now let's talk about what I think about the biggest culprit, and that is social media. Now, don't get me wrong, social media can be an incredible tool. It's a way to connect with people form communities, learn from others' experiences, but it's also a breeding ground for misinformation, particularly when it comes to visas and moving to Italy. The problem is that many people on social media are sharing their personal experiences as if they apply universally, and they don't. Every process in Italy has a discretionary element, and sometimes it's just a little bit, and most of the time it's a lot. No two people's experiences are exactly the same, and that's because the bureaucracy here can vary depending on the office, the official reviewing your case, and even how your documents are interpreted. And then you add to that the fact that every applicant's situation is unique. They have different finances, family setups, and goals. And you start to see why following someone else's advice online can be very risky. And here's another thing. Many people share their success stories online, and they aren't really telling you the whole truth. And I know this because I've read their accounts, spoken to those clients directly who followed those same stories, and I've spotted the gaps. Now, maybe they leave out key details about how much money they had to spend, who helped them behind the scenes, or what sacrifices they made. Whatever the case, their version of events isn't the full picture, and it can mislead others into thinking that the process is simpler than it is. So how do you know about what's real and what's not? Now, start with common sense, just like everything you're reading these days. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And second, always consult a professional or somebody who has experience in the topic that you're researching. Work with someone who has a vested interest in your success, someone who won't take your case. They won't take your money if they don't think it'll work. It's not about taking your money and leaving you in a lurch. You need to seek out honesty, even if it's not what you want to hear at first, because in the long run, the truth will save you time and money and, of course, a lot of heartache. Now, moving to Italy is a dream worth pursuing, but it requires very careful planning when you're looking to get a visa and a lot of accurate information. So don't let the noise of all that fake news out there about visas and half-truths derail you from achieving it. Just take your time and work through the process. Now, my third subject is, I'm sure, going to buzz your ears because everybody probably at some time has heard about this topic and have thought, maybe it's good for me. And that is the famous €1 homes. Now, these are things of viral headlines. They're shared worldwide, promises of living out your Italian dreams and your Italian fantasies for really nothing, for peanuts. Now, the idea of buying a house in Italy for just €1 feels almost too good to be true. And spoiler alert, it is. It usually is. Now, while the concept itself is real, the reality is far more complicated than those, attention-grabbing headlines. So here's the truth. Yes, €1 homes do exist, but they're not a magic ticket to your Italian dream. Now, these properties are usually located in super remote villages that are trying to attract new people, new residents, in an effort to revitalize their communities. And it's a fantastic initiative for these towns. But the homes themselves, well, they're often in serious disrepair. Think crumbling walls and missing roofs and, decades of neglect. Renovations are not optional, and they can cost tens of thousands of euros or more, depending, of course, on the property. Now, what's more, buyers are typically required to commit to completing those renovations within a strict time frame, usually, 1 to 3 years. Now, that's a really tight schedule here in Italy, especially when dealing with bureaucracy or sourcing local contractors or navigating renovation permits. It really isn't a project for the faint of heart or somebody with a very tight budget. Now, let me tell you about another current initiative, which I like and I don't like. So it's in Sardinia, and it's targeting right now Americans, specifically Americans after the election. And you all know how much I love Sardinia. And if you've been following me, you know I encourage anyone to pack up and experience life on this incredible magical island. Now, this little town is in central Sardinia, and it's super, super charming. And I think the mayor's initiative is really amazing. And he's tapped into this, current desire to escape and simplify, which people are looking to do when they move to Italy, and using this opportunity to draw attention to his village. I think good for you. Go for it. It's a great idea. But here's the part that they don't tell you about. You can't just pack up and move there. You still need a visa. And if you're eyeing something in like the digital nomad, because there's also this element of being a digital nomad, you'll need to go through that application process first before making the move. But that crucial detail is often left out of the marketing materials, leaving many people to think that the invitation to buy these homes somehow bypasses Italy's immigration requirements. It doesn't. You still need to have a visa. So unfortunately, we've heard from people who fell for this illusion, not in this little town in Sardinia, but somewhere else. And they sold their home, packed their bags, and they moved to Italy without considering the legalities, only to find out that after the 90 days had expired, that they had to leave. And sometimes they didn't even have a place to go back to at home. I had to find a bunch of friends to live with. And it's heartbreaking because their dream was real, but they didn't have the right information at the beginning to make it sustainable. So here's the takeaway. One-year homes and specific initiatives are great opportunities for the right person, but they're not an easy or inexpensive way to move to Italy. You need to understand the true costs, the responsibilities, and most importantly, the immigration process that must happen before you can even consider making that kind of a move. Now, don't let the allure of a bargain house overshadow the reality of what it takes to build a new life here. Always do your homework and get the advice from people who you trust, who know the process inside and out. And trust me, it'll save you time, money, and again, as I'm always saying, a lot of heartache. Now, let's take a moment. Let's just step back and think about why all of this even matters, especially in a world with so much fake news. So moving to Italy is more than packing your bags and booking a flight. It's really a life-changing decision. Whether you're planning to live here part-time or full-time, or you're just simply exploring your options right now, the process involves your time, your money, and your peace of mind. So you want to make sure that every step you take is based on fact and not falsehoods. And that's why it's so important to know how to spot the fake news, the misleading claims, or incomplete advice. Whether it's about visas or taxes or buying property, believing misinformation can cost you dearly, not just financially, but also emotionally. It's an emotional journey to move to Italy. Believe me, it still is, even when I'm here. The frustration of hitting these unexpected roadblocks or realizing that you made the wrong choice because you didn't have the right information can be really overwhelming and make you feel kind of like a failure, and you shouldn't. So how can you protect yourself from falling into these traps? Let's break it down into actionable steps that will help you separate this fact from fiction. All right. Number 1, check the source. First and foremost, always check where the information is coming from. Is it a reputable website, a government page, or a trusted expert? Or is it a random post on Facebook or in social media, a poorly written blog, or an AI-generated guide with no verifiable credentials? Sensational headlines and vague claims are really big red flags. You know, that clickbait, those big headlines that make you click really quickly. That's usually your first red flag. For example, if someone tells you that I know someone who got an elective residency visa and they didn't have the income that they say you needed, well, you need to start digging deeper, because I can tell you just what I know about ERVs, that's not the truth. And then you have to question the statement. You know, what consulate did they go to? Tell me more about their story. Get some details to try to flesh out whether or not it's just somebody giving you false news or just making some statement just to comment on something they didn't really know about. But don't take it for truth just because you read it. Now, number 2, look for specifics. The devil, as they say, is in the details. Genuine information includes very specific things. If an article is making bold claims like, get your Italian citizenship in 6 months, or move to Italy tax-free, but it doesn't explain how to do it, what steps you need to take, or what restrictions apply, then that, my friend, is a red flag. So take the one-year home schemes, for example. Articles that promote it as an easy way to move to Italy often fail to mention that the extensive renovations required, the legal commitments, and most importantly, the fact that you still need a visa to live here legally, usually are the red flags. And if details are missing or overly vague, then approach the information with skepticism and with caution. Now, number 3, cross-check your information. Don't rely on just one source. Cross-checking is your best friend when you're researching something as complex as moving to Italy. And I know it can sometimes make it worse because there's so much conflicting information. But again, if you use the reliable sources, looking for the details, and start critically thinking about what you're reading, things will become a little clearer. Now, if you see a claim on a website or a social media post, confirm it by looking at multiple reputable sources. And often these will be government pages or agencies that already have a reputation, that you know that they're truthful. These are things that you can look at to help confirm what you're reading is true. For example, if you read that Italy has a new digital nomad visa, which by the way it does, and it's very good, don't just stop there. Start checking multiple government pages and official updates to verify what the criteria is, where it's being implemented, what documents that you'll need. This extra step that you take can take some time, of course, but it can save you a lot of time and save you from making decisions based on just a little bit or incomplete information. Now, number 4, consult professionals. Of course, you know I'm going to say this because it doesn't have to be me or it doesn't have to be Smart Move. It just needs to be somebody that you trust. Now, when in doubt, ask a professional. It is especially important for areas where the stakes are so high, like visas and taxes and legal matters. Professionals like Commercialista, who is a tax advisor, immigration lawyers that we have, or relocation specialists, will have the expertise to give you tailored advice based on your unique circumstance. There isn't a one-size-fits-all, my friend, when it comes to moving to Italy. Everybody's situation is entirely different. Now, the right person won't just give you a generic answer. They will talk to you about your income, your goals, your family setup, your timelines, and give you a plan that you need to work towards. Yeah, it could cost you a consultation fee up front, but consider it as an investment to avoiding big mistakes that can cost you a lot down the line. All right, number 5, be wary of too good to be true claims. Now, this I think is good for pretty much anything, isn't it? If something sounds too good to be true, it is. I guarantee you it is. Moving to Italy is an amazing thing to do, and it's an amazing journey that you'll go on, but it's not without challenges. So promises like move to Italy without a visa or no taxes for expats. These are red flags, and it should immediately make you pause. So the bottom line really is this: misinformation is everywhere. Fake news is everywhere. So you should be starting to get pretty good at reading between the lines and checking and fact checking before you take something, for truth on face value. Because again, misinformation is everywhere. And when it comes to something as significant as moving to Italy, you can't afford to get it wrong. Always start with a healthy dose of skepticism, not so much that you're panicked and you're worried about everything you do, but just use your common sense and follow the steps to separate the fact from the fiction that I advised. Now, at the end of the day, making the right decisions about your move to Italy comes down to having accurate, reliable information and a clear plan to follow. And trust your instincts. If something feels bad, dig a little deeper because it probably is. And don't hesitate to ask for help when you need it. After all, this is your dream, and it's worth doing it right. It's time for listener questions. Just like the old radio call-in shows, my team has picked 3 listener questions, all left on our voicemail. I have no idea what these questions are, but I haven't been stumped yet. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Hi, Samantha. My name is Paige, and my question is, I have this dream of going back to school to further my education in Italy, but the big thing that is stopping me is potentially being separated from my family. I have a spouse and 2 young children, and it is very important for me to be able to pursue this dream as best as we can together as a family unit. And so I am wondering what kind of visa options we need to be taking a look at so that we can pursue this dream and still be together as a family.
Hello, Paige. Great question. The student visa, obviously, you are thinking of studying maybe something, advancing some education that you already have here in Italy. I mean, great place to come to school for sure and study. Now, the student visa, just really quickly, is not an easy visa to get. So if you are coming here to advance studies, like maybe get your master's degree here, you'll have to show that you've already got an undergrad or some sort of studying prior to, because you have to answer the question, why do you need to move to Italy to study whatever it is you're planning to study? And if you can cover that off, the good news is you can bring your family on the student visa. It's really good, as long as the course that you are applying for and that you're getting the visa for is more than 12 months. So the student visa is one of a few visas where you can actually bring in your family. They don't need to be dependents of yours, like you don't need to be supporting them completely, but you can bring in your spouse and your children as long as you're married, your spouse and your children with you as long as you have a course that you're enrolled in and a visa that's more than 12 months. And also on the student visa, you can work up to 20 hours a week. So it's a pretty good visa if you can get it. Good luck.
Hi, Samantha. This is Ed from, Hawaii. We have our visas and we're planning on heading over there in the next couple of months. We already have a place to live. My question is vehicles. I'm familiar with licensing. I'm familiar with not taking vehicles over, all those types of things. So I guess my question is how do I lease when we get there, assuming that the lease I can get before we get our permit, and it would cover the insurance. So any recommendations on how we get a vehicle leased until we get our license? Thanks, Ed.
Well, hello, Ed, and congratulations on your visa and your pending move from Hawaii to Italy. That's quite a journey, so good for you. Now, about leasing a car. Yes, as you're probably alluding to, you cannot buy a car in Italy until you have established your residency. So if you're on a visa, you have to go through the immigration process first, which is getting your permesso di soggiorno, and then after that, you can apply for your residency. And this sometimes can take about a year, depending where, of course, you're living. But it can take some time. In the meantime, it's a long way to walk or a long time to walk. So if you want to have a car, there's only a couple of options. One is you can continue to rent a car at a rental agency, or you can do those what a lot of people are using are the French long-term leases. Actually, you could only go up to, I think, 170 days, and you get the car out of France. It's completely covered in your insurance. And they're the cars, if you've ever seen drive around Italy with the red license plates. They can actually even deliver the leased vehicle directly to you. I think in Italy, Milano and Rome, I think are the two places they can deliver it to. I'll put the link in the show notes. But Peugeot and Citroën are both, and Renault, I think, are the three types of cars. We used to do it a lot. That's before we had residency here. We used to rent Citroën all the time in France and drive it until we were able to buy a car ourselves. You won't be able to buy a car through a lease, if that's what you're thinking, until you have residency. So you have to find a way of renting and keeping it economical until you are able to get your residency.
Hi, Samantha. This is Lisa and Andrew Scott. We purchased a house in Umbria and are intending to move to Italy permanently as a family with our 7-year-old daughter in April 2025. We are going to be moving on a digital nomad visa. Our question is, we heard that it is possible to purchase a car in Italy with the help of a local. Can you please give us more details about how to go about it and how to approach a local with a request like this? Thank you, Samantha. Bye.
Hi, Lisa. Another question about car ownership in Italy. So you can only buy a car in Italy, or you can buy a car. I'm sure any car salesman would love to sell you a car, but you can't register it unless you are a resident of Italy. So even a local, what I think you're alluding to is having somebody that you know that lives in Italy already buy the car under their name and then let you drive it. This is not the correct way of going. So what you have to do is, as I had mentioned in the last question, you can rent a car in some long leases. You can do long rental contracts until you're able to establish your residency and then buy a car. Since you're coming on the digital nomad visa, you will end up doing this anyway, and you're moving with your daughter. So you will end up forming your residency in your new home in Umbria. And then once you have that, then you can go through the process of buying a car in your own name. Okay, hope that helps. Well, that's all for this week's episode. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions about visas, citizenship, property, and well, really anything about moving to Italy that you would like me to answer in an upcoming episode, please feel free to send us a voicemail at our website at smartmoveitaly.com/podcast, or just click on the links in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and remember, you can find all of the resources and the links to the people and the places that I mentioned in this episode inside the show notes. Ciao for now. A New Life in Italy podcast is a production of Sentire Media, created and hosted by me, Samantha Wilson. Production by London Nero, and with special thanks to Ali Frothingham, Sofia Pisana, and the entire team at Sentire. Follow A New Life in Italy wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, if you're thinking of moving to Italy, whether full-time, part-time, or for a lifetime, come and see me over at smartmoveitaly.com and we'll help you get here and start living your best life. And don't forget, if you love this episode, please rate and leave a review. It's much appreciated. I can't wait to meet up with you again next week, same time, same place. Ciao for now.
Sentire Media.
Hey, podcast producers and show hosts. Do you want to join a podcast network that celebrates all things Italian? At Sentire Media, we understand the allure of Italy and its unique culture. Our devoted team of hosts and producers are all driven by their shared passion for Italy. And we work tirelessly to create the best lifestyle podcasts and content that will whisk you away to the very heart of Italy. With us, you can savor the mouth-watering flavors, get lost in the stories from the past, break down the cultural barriers, and truly immerse yourself in the vibrant traditions of this intoxicating country. If you have a great podcast idea or are already in production and would like to join Sentire Media, head over to sentiremedia.com, that's SENTIRE media.com, and find out how to submit your show.